Hello and welcome to Matchbook's English Derby Greyhound Derby special. I am joined by two legends of, well, both Greyhound racing and sport in general. I probably need more introduction than the two men I'm about to introduce. My name's Ian Fortune. I'll be your host for the next hour or so, chatting about all matters Greyhound racing, especially the English Derby. But again, the two men I am going to introduce: Jimmy Barry-Murphy, the great dual player in Irish GAA circles, a man who recently was installed into the Hall of Fame in the National Greyhound Awards in Irish Greyhound racing, a true legend of the small ball and the big ball, as they say in Ireland, and of course his great pal, Harry Findlay, a man who probably needs no introduction to anybody that's watching a betting podcast. Harry, a man who has, I don't know, you say you have more ups and downs than Katie Price over the years, Harry. You have a great love for Greyhound racing. You have a great love for all sport. But of course, you're also a punting god, as they say. Harry, firstly, we're going to start with yourself. How is things? And I'm going to ask you to introduce Jimmy Barry-Murphy, because I don't know how is the best way to describe it through our UK contingent. Would he be a Bobby Moore? Would he be an Ian Botham? How would you describe him?
Well, he's in the back of my book, Ian, and Phil Taylor never made it. So no, he is. The Jimmy Barry-Murphy goal. I think the hurling goal he scored, the deflect. He'll modestly say it was a deflection, but in my opinion, not an expert, is probably the most skillful goal scored in any field of sport. And no, he really is a true legend. And in the past, we've had some great times, both on the track and perhaps even more so in the coursing fields.
Jimmy, of course, you're a Cork man. I dare say if Harry was not an Englishman, his next port of call would be, he'd probably describe himself as a West Cork man. You go back a long way, I'm sure.
I know Harry the best part of 40 years now, and one of the most generous and fantastic sports people I've ever met in any code, because he's just great fun, extremely generous, warm-hearted, and he's still, to my knowledge, the only man who blagged his way into the Cork dressing room in Croke Park. And Ian, you know what Croke Park security is like on the final day. And at the final whistle, 99, we're all in the dressing room together, all the players, county board, and next thing, who arrives in? Only the bold Harry, dressed in Cork gear, short, dripping in rain. And I still, to this day, haven't a clue how he managed it. I think he been to North Korea, then into the dressing rooms in Croke Park.
Well, he has history. He was the 13th man in a cricket dressing room for the Australians.
We didn't say it in the book, but Neil Harmon, who wrote the book, I first met Neil at the same time when I was really young, early 20s. And Jim and I used to go to Roland Garros. And even in those days, it was like €80 and €90 to get in, or whatever it was at the time in France. And we used to walk in with our white tracksuits, and walk in the players, no problem. And that was the first time Neil Harmon ever realised who I was, just from walking in straight through the Roland Garros as if we were players.
Don't take this the wrong way, Harry, but I'm not sure you ever looked like a tennis player to me.
No, I was in the early 20s. I wasn't too bad. I was a lot thinner than I am now, and it wasn't so much that you were a player. It was just the fact that you fitted in, and sporting venues up and down the country.
What did you get to Croke Park that day?
Oh, that was quite easy, Jimmy. Really, I was just adrenaline and just blagging. I was pretty good at blagging my way into anywhere, really. It's a different world we live in now. But I mean, golf tournaments, I can't ever remember paying to get in a golf tournament when I was a youngster. I was borderline addicted to going to watch golf tournaments for a while. So
great way to spend an afternoon, Jimmy, or Harry. Great way to spend an afternoon. Harry, we have to ask you, how's lockdown been treating you? Normally, you'd be chasing the sun around the world at in the early months of the year. Sort of, how's lockdown been for you in terms of, you haven't been able to get across to Australia? I know you often go over in the early part of the year.
Yeah, well, every year normally for sort of 2 or 3 months, and it's been a shock this year. But to be fair, we'll talk about it later with everything that's going on at Lifford. It's been the best year not to go for me. The problem is the Aussies are talking about keeping it all closed down for another couple of years, and that would certainly start the grind a bit. But I honestly think, Ian, that throughout lockdown, I just realised more than ever how much we love sport. Every year, every day, every week I get older, I realise more and more what a part it plays in our lives. And I think we're so lucky that horses and greyhounds have done so well during lockdown. And it was my early prediction, and rightly so, that greyhound racing would be one of the only sports in the world to actually benefit from lockdown. And it's proved to be the case. In Australia, the tote turnover is over 3 times higher 1 year after lockdown than it was before it started. And The dogs in Australia were already way on the up before that. But really, to still have racing and dog racing and all the other sports, it's been amazing. And right at the start, when we were completely locked down, I remember watching all the Belarusian games, football, and the Swedish trots. Glenn's got a contact there, and we were doing the trots. So as long as there's something to bet on in live sport, I'm all right.
Yeah, I think we'll all say that, Jimmy. I think you'll agree with that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's only now we realise how much these sporting events mean to us. I mean, my whole year is centred around going to Cheltenham for a week, meet up with my friends there, Luke McMahon, who's a couple of horses with Willie Mullins, go to the Stratford, stay there, Derby in Shelbourne Park, you know, the English Derby, if I can get to it, whatever it's on, and then Croke Park Fall Ireland final days, as you know, Ian, all very special parts of our lives. And, you know, the sport is so much a huge part of our lives, and it's only now we really realise how much we miss it, how much we need it.
Yeah, thankfully it sort of happened at the right time when there is so much televised sport, because it got to the point where it was nearly saturation. There was so much sport you could watch morning, noon and night. You know, it really got us through some very hard times. Listen, lads, we are here to talk about the English Derby, you know, to start with. We'll get into more stuff later on, but we're going to have to look at the English Derby. Harry, how have you been? You've been keeping up to date with all the dogs at present?
Yeah, sort of. Paul Lawrence has... I know the Tote were hoping to get involved with the Derby last year in Nottingham. So we were sort of very much taking that very seriously. So we were doing the Derby last year together. And I went for a massive touch before we got injured on Ice on Fire. That was my biggest touch of the year, 33 and 25. So like any time, when you have a big anti-post bet, suddenly it becomes a massive event in your life. And that's the great thing about anti-post punting. And I think the Greyhound Derby, both the Irish and the English version, are one of the most famous anti-post markets anywhere in the world. And I don't know whether it's a psychological trick, but when you have three qualify from every 6 or 5, for some reason the human mind suggests that you've always got a chance. And no matter how many runners, you know, people think their dog can get to the final. There's the each way, the 6 of the odds, which punters just love. I mean, my only bet so far is the machine. Only because he's strong and he was going to keep framing up, but it's 66, but that price is long gone. But that's a sort of the Greyhound Derby compared with any other Greyhound event is unique, and in betting terms, the same thing. It's a very exciting contest for punters.
Yeah, 6 rounds, but as you say, like that 3 to qualify, you think, well, sure, this fella can't get knocked out. And how does he get knocked out? Until you look back at it and you see, like, they are greyhounds and stuff happens. First corner, third bend, wherever. It could be boxes, it could be anything. But it's all about qualification. And, you know, it's not always a case of backing the really strong dog you think you'll always go through. It always doesn't happen that way. Jimmy, you've some great members of the English Derby going back, I'm sure, a long, long time. But this year, from an Irish point of view, we really do seem to have a tight grip in the market. Definitely.
And yeah, I mean, I've had a fantastic dream all my life since I went to the White City in 1973 with a great friend of mine, Tim Scannell. We were 19, headed off for our first English Derby. White City was an incredible spectacle. Never in my life saw anything like it. Over 30,000 people, 80 to 100 bookmakers, massive Tote figures. It was just an incredible grass spectacle of a track. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And since then, I had this dream that someday I might have a dog good enough to go there. But, you know, like all greyhound owners. But the English Derby is a very, very special event. I know the Irish Derby obviously is as well. But the English Derby, I think, for me anyway, has always had that mystique about it, that going over, taking on the old enemy and trying to be victorious there. But I think our standard of entries this year is probably even stronger than ever. If that's you know, saying something stupid after last year when we had such a great tournament as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Harry, like you mentioned there, White City, it went to Wimbledon then for quite a number of years, and it was seen as a real sort of speed test. But we're back to a 500-metre trip in the last few years between Toaster, Nottingham, and now back at the newer Toaster. It probably is suited to a stronger type greyhound than we would have seen in the Wimbledon years.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, an old friend of mine, Chris Burt, down in Brighton, for me, he's always been one of the best judges of a dog I've ever known. He has his own different view, and it's often right and often includes big prices. But he's watched more racing at Toaster in the last 3 or 4 years than anyone else, and he's absolutely convinced that what you really need to do to succeed at Toaster, especially in a competition, is to track well and to run the bends well. He's convinced that certain dogs run the bends really well there and others don't. And that is what is for him the major two things. You need a dog that can trap and consistently trap fairly well, and a dog that can run the bends well. The wide runners have been many people said they can't win. Chris says if they generally slow away, it's very hard for them to win. But if they do run the bends well and they're good trappers, he thinks they're the main two things that you need in your armoury to succeed at Toaster.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a quick look at the Ante-Post market here, available on Matchbook. And you see at the top there, now obviously it's early in the week and things will happen in the next few days, but Knocknabull Sid generally is the favourite. Harry, you said a dog that traps well and runs the bends well. Knocknabull Sid certainly comes into that one. The likes of Ballymac Ariel, well, whether she can find enough consistency at boxes. Native Maestro, he's a dog that seems to have it all. New In Session has been a little bit inconsistent, but the one thing you'll notice there, the first 6 names are all Irish trained. Of those 6, Harry, is there anything that's catching your eye?
Well, Knockable Sid for me from last year, and I know that some true guys are betting this year. He's the real early pace one there for me, the one that showed the most early last year. Ballymac Ariel, she's a bitch, 33 kilos, is that right?
Yeah, she's over 70 pounds in Irish money, yeah.
Yeah, I was told to back her in the Conan Ann competition, which I did each way or something, and she didn't run well, but I believe the trainer said she wasn't right, and she came into the flying trial at Toaster. So I wouldn't be against her. New In Session got beat by a dog, I think the Highline dog that
Highlight Arkle, yeah.
Highlight Arkle, who Chris says there'll be very, very few dogs lead that to the corner. I think that's Chris's main bet, actually, Highlight Arkle each at 33-1. So I wouldn't be, and of course I watched that race. That was one of the races I watched, and I thought that was a cracking battle between them two. So I wouldn't be like everyone else. I was the Irish dogs last year. The overall form compared with the English dogs was so strong, and I can't see it being any different this year.
Yeah, is it the fact, Jimmy, that we have such a strong standard over here that they go over there tested, match fit, as they say, reddened, battle hardened. That's why that they are up there. We know they're proven performers, where a few of the English dogs or the UK dogs have a bit to prove, perhaps.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with you before, Ian, and I think the standard of racing in Shelbourne Park is absolutely sky high. And even over the last 2-3 years, in my opinion, it has gone to a new level altogether. So any of us who live in the country, provincial circuits, who want to get to Shelbourne Park, you really have to have a dog who's going to hit the heights. And when the dogs run very, very well in Shelbourne Park, then last year in particular in Nottingham, that form really transferred itself to Nottingham. And I had some lovely bets early on because I focused on the strength of the dogs who had been running well in Shelbourne Park, and that form went right throughout the tournament last year, I thought. So, Ian, the Clonmany, Kirby, Memorial, Limerick, fantastic race. All the provincial tracks have had fantastic unraced competitions and young pups races this year. And the standard really is sky high. And I think that, there are some very, very good English dogs, no doubt. But we seem to have a stranglehold on the betting and on the chances of winning, I think.
Yeah. Have you played yet, Jimmy? Is there anything that's catching your eye?
Yeah, Harry mentioned, I was on Harry last week, and he was mentioning about Chris saying about the dog need to be a strong running dog. But the dog I backed at 40-1 already is Beach Avenue. I just think with Paul Hennessy training him, he's not blessed with fantastic early pace, but I think it's a classic case of he should qualify in most rounds. I know very famous last words we were talking about, but his run there last week was fantastic. He passed Highlight Arc on the line, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he came from about 8 lengths behind him, but that's no surprise. We've seen him picking up the likes of Ballymac Wild, Billy's Diva, great name that, which I didn't think was possible. Like coming from lengths behind him over 550 yards, 600 yards at Shelbourne Park, he's stunningly fast from the second bend.
Exactly, I think he just might take the track, and I think Paul Hennessy has a fantastic Derby record, and I think he's the only bet I've had so far. The other two I've been looking at, I thought Native Maestro has a big chance of super dog. And I think Ballymac Ariel, if she takes the track again, will have a big say in it. Yeah,
trial was very encouraging for her, obviously 29-11. Harry, Jimmy specified there about you're buying a dog, certainly in Ireland, to get to Shelbourne Park. It'd be the likes of, when you're buying a racehorse, you want to get them to Cheltenham. In Ireland, we certainly want a dog that can run in Shelbourne Park. A lot of UK men are buying dogs in Ireland and keeping them in Ireland because they want to run at Shelbourne Park. The fact that the dogs aren't coming across the pond, is that why our challenge is so strong? The same dogs that would have come across in years gone by are probably staying in Ireland now.
Yes, I think that's a good call and a big percentage of what it is. I think that your racing structure areas where the bigger tracks before and the competitions and the setup. I think, and especially since COVID, I do think that maybe in years gone by, it's not the balance of the dogs. It's a case of when they're coming over. And previously, before someone like myself would have maybe bought a couple of dogs, they would have been straight over to England and then be based as an English dog. So I think that's definitely a part of it. And it's even more likely to be that way while you've got a COVID type situation with the travel, etc. So that's another reason why the figures look so, well, certainly the percentages are so much in the Irish dog's favour.
Is there any trainers in the UK that you would follow, sort of not blind, but that you'd always show that little bit of extra respect towards? Like, there is a good quality of trainers, a really good quality of trainer around in the UK at present. Some youngish trainers, but also some very established trainers over there. Is there anyone in particular that you'd just add that bit more weight, stock to?
No, not really. I mean, you've got the Mark Wallaces, the Kevin Huttons, the Patrick Janssens. They're all top class. The great thing about the greyhound game for me is that the quality of people involved in dogs. To get the very best out of these dogs, and that's what they are. These top end dogs. You see them. We were talking the other night about going to Mickey Murphy's in the 80s with the coursing dogs the week before Clonmel, and they look like. And the track dogs are pretty much the same. And the trainers, the quality of those top trainers in England and in Ireland are superb. And we have trainers that can, of course, go from one to the other and succeed. So I don't think in terms of ability of trainers, there's that much. I certainly think that Don Cully was the greatest man ever put on a lead. I think he was if anything, he was a freak. But other than that, I'd say that the quality of trainers in both Ireland and England is superb. And I'd say the bigger difference is the quality of dogs. And funny enough, what you said, nowadays perhaps more dogs will stay in Ireland, and people are happy owners are much happier to have the early races. Like Jimmy said last year, he had that form. So why would you change that? Why would if you bought a special dog, why would you take him away from Shelbourne? You wouldn't. And forget last year's Derby is very different here because it was run at a different time of year, and the Irish dogs had already competed in the Irish Derby, so it was hard to work. A lot of people thought the Irish dogs would fall away when they never. So I think we'll get a fairer estimate this year. But once again, as you say, a lot of the dogs are starting from Irish kennels where maybe in the past they wouldn't.
Yeah, Jimmy, the extra run this year, there'll be a sort of little bit more, emphasis on the sort of the attritional end of things. But by all accounts, these are all sort of well-established performers, with a few exceptions that are sort of younger. Is there something you take into account when you're looking at a derby, a dog that will stand up to the tests over the 6 weeks, or is it something that sort of is secondary in your mind?
Yeah, when I looked at Beach Avenue, Ian, and I'd watched him Shelbourne Park, and you commented on the races he ran in. That's why I think the competition and the track might suit him, because he will stay. He's a very strong running dog. He has shown that he can stay 600 yards, and it'll take a very, very tough, durable dog to do that again. Is there going to be 3 runs in a week again at the end? Is that?
No, that's gone. When they stepped up to 500 meters, they had to get rid of. Yeah,
that was a killer. Yeah, that was a killer. Fairly paced dog. But Beach Avenue, I just like he's the makeup of a dog that I think is suited to the English Derby. It's tough going, it's attritional, and it'll take a real hardy dog. But again, as I said, Paul Hensey has been there. And you're talking about English trainers there. There's some outstanding English trainers as well, Ian. I mean, you're talking about Seamus Cahill, won the last English Derby at Tote, right? Say, did he? Another super trainer from Hove. And, the lads Harry mentioned there, Patrick Janssens, Mark Wallace, Kevin Moot. They're fantastic trainers. It's just a matter of who all these guys can do it if they have the right dog, I think.
Yeah, actually, Seamus won the first one with Astute Missile. The second one was Kevin Hutton, actually, who Harry mentioned earlier on with the great Dorota's Wildcat. Is there a Dorota's Wildcat in the English contingent, Harry? Is there anything of the English? I know you've mentioned Highlight Arkle. Is there anything else that catches your eye?
No, he's not a great price, but I don't know the form well enough to. I don't comment without having an opinion. But I did see that light fawn dog of the Keatleys, Roxhome Shake.
Roxhome Shake, yeah.
I just saw it out of the corner of my eye and watched the replay. When he won the race, he looked like a proper greyhound, proper fast greyhound. But whether I don't think I wouldn't. Just from watching that one run, I wouldn't thought there's many in England that will cope with him. I don't think 10 pin's a rocket. I've seen 10 pin win. 10 pin's not a rocket. I know that. Funnily enough, Paul Lawrence has bet the same dog as Jimmy each way, Beach Road, same same feeling. Strong.
You're going back to the horses there. You're going back to the horses, Beach Road, Beach Avenue.
Beach Avenue. He's been the same dog. I noticed on the text this morning he sent me that he thought the same as Jimmy, that it'd be very hard to keep out the frame and a good dog to back each way. And I think the point that Jimmy just made about the Tuesday night, I think it's much better that we don't have the Tuesday night. It was always, for me, totally unnecessary to ask a dog to run on a Saturday night and then come out on a Tuesday night. And so many real fast, pacey Derby dogs, fell at that hurdle and were caught out by that hurdle. And I think that when you get to the latter stages of the Derby, quarter-final, semi-final, final, the least the dogs deserve is that week's rest, and that the people that are preparing the dogs the chance to get them spot on the big night. And I'm so glad that Tuesday quarter-final is taken out of the way.
Yeah, we're looking at an entry of well, it was at 187 or 188, but you've obviously had a few non-runners in the space of the last week. It'll be about 180. But you mentioned earlier on 3 to qualify. We're a matter of 3 rounds or 3 nights racing. Thursday, Friday, Saturday before, we're down to 96. 96 quickly becomes 48, and 48 quickly becomes 24. Like there's you blink and you sort of miss it stuff. It's there's going to be so much happening over the next whatever, we're talking 5 nights racing in the first 2 rounds, 3 nights in the first round, 2 nights in the second round, that you will blink and miss it. The fact that there is so much racing in the opening round, 32 heats and all, is it against punters? Do you get the chance to really do your work, or is it for the punters because the bookmakers have to price up everything? You then only have to concentrate in 3 or 4 heats. Which way would you see it, Harry?
Oh, it can only be in the punters' favour. The less they know, the more what they've got to do, the better chance the punters have got. The problem punters have got more about picking winners is getting on at the moment, and we're trying to find some opposition to, the exchanges. We got Matchbook now and the competitors. I think it's great that the exchange firms are supporting the dogs, and because it is the best market. It's the best for me. It's the best betting sport in the world. It's the only sport that was made for betting, and. To me, the Greyhound Derby, I'm all for that extra week. I'm all for the 7th week. No problem with that. It, it saves trial stakes and gives dogs even more time. I've got no problem with the extra week. And if it thins it out a bit, then hopefully that should help the punters and maybe help them try and find a winner.
Yeah, key is to be in that 96, Jimmy. The opening round, 32 heats. Will you be tuning into every one of them?
I will indeed. In last year, I was on the phone to you and we were looking at individual heats, and I thought there was some great value early on in Nottingham last year. So I'll be looking at individual heats and try and find 2 or 3 winners at a bit of a price and try and kickstart the few weeks. And last year, I had a bit of luck for a change early on and got a few dockets up with Deerfield, Sydney, Knockable, Jet. They all took off there early on last year, and Wolf as well. And there is a bit of value there. Obviously, you've got to curtail your bets because of the number of heats. So we start on Thursday night to see is there any bit of value there and work from there.
Yeah, if you haven't 32 bets, the odds are you're not winning money. In terms of you're after nailing your colours to the mast in terms of Beach Avenue. If you had, irrespective of price, if you had the choice of 2 or 3 dogs from the Derby, which would you be taking?
Native Maestro, definitely. And the Ballymac area. They're the 3 of my top 3. I'd be very
Beach Avenue, of course.
Beach Avenue, exactly, yeah. And the other 2 I mentioned there.
Yeah. Harry, I know you're not going to get them for free, but if you were given 3 dogs for free, irrespective of price, have you a top 3? Sorry, Harry, you're on mute there.
I'm supposing I'd have to say highlight Arkle, really. And I wouldn't desert New In Session. Maybe I could think of a clever pick than him. He's been, everyone knows New In Session inside out. But Chris gives a 100 to 1 chance, a bit of a squeak. Bandicoot, Sammy. And Jimmy, you were asking earlier about English trainers. There's another one. Chris seems to think that Robert Gleason's a fine man with a dog, and he gives Bandicoot Sammy a chance at 100 to 1. So I might put him in at a big price.
Yeah, Irish Derby winning trainer, of course, Robert Gleason, won with Slippery Robert a few years back. Has a good team of dogs. Certainly a very shrewd individual. He's only a young man. When I say young man, he's not too much younger than myself, yourself. But Bandicoot Sammy is a dog who's been around a while, but consistency has been a problem. He only won 2 races in a row on one occasion, and those two runs happened to be separated by 2-month layoff. So be interesting to see how he goes. He did run very well in the opening round of the Maiden Derby, winning in 29:40. So perhaps, as you say, Harry, won at a big price, sure to be even bigger on the exchanges.
Yeah. Most of the bets are bigger on the exchanges.
Yeah, well, listen, while we're at it, exchange betting, Harry, you're obviously a fan. You've obviously, you see the benefits of exchange betting. How have they been treating you? Has your modus operandi changed over the years because of exchanges?
No, when I first bumped into them, I couldn't stop playing on them all the time, and it's still the same now. I just love all of it. I love the whole concept of it, the whole trading concept of it, and lower margins. This is why Graham needs that. Tote needs a low margin. It's what attracts punters. The bookies and the firms will have you think, and the Ray Winstons will have you think that punters can't count and punters don't know. They have no respect for punters, but you have to have respect for punters. And Greyhound Racing, the number of people that have been lost to Greyhound Racing because of the takeouts too high, and Greyhound Racing's fallen behind the times, not because of the sport itself, but because people can bet football at 5% or draw no bet or on exchange all the time with 2% margins, and Greyhound Racing's got to be the same. And that's what we need to do. We need to make Greyhound Racing real value for the punters, because it's the best bet. I bet on everything, and I don't know anyone who loves gambling more than me, and I'd always pick Greyhound Racing as the best thing to bet on and the best enjoyment. If I'm having 3 bets a day, one football team, one horse or one dog, I'll be looking forward to watching the dog the most.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Harry the dog, that's your name. We wouldn't have it any other way, Harry. Jimmy, exchanges for yourself, have you been a big player over the years, or are you still stuck with the fixed odds?
Well, I still like to go to the betting office now and again, and it's a part of my life. I suppose I could have done without it several occasions, but it's fantastic to see Matchbook now entering the betting for the English Greyhound Derby here, and there is definitely value there. I mean, I was looking at Beach Avenue this morning with most of the firms on the high street, and they're 25-1, and I see in Matchbook now there is 30-1. So I'm not sure how much liquidity is in the market yet, but there is definitely a couple of points to pair on the exchanges, and value there for the punter without doubt. And it's a great asset, as Harry said there. There's so many different options with it.
Yeah, I must say, if you look at my computer and my history, I think the exchange is by far and away the top things on the hit list. Listen, they've changed a lot. 20 years on, of course, Harry, that's what we're talking about. Exchanges now, they really did change the game. Yes,
they did, and one of the people that the second go round with Betfair was Breon Corcoran, who was Paddy Power, and he's now convinced that we're going to end up in a cashless society in 10 years' time, and there won't be many betting shops left. And this is yet another reason for why I believe that Greyhound Racing Ireland and should be looking at that lower margin Tote model, because we in the future, there's no reason why the Tote betting can't be a lower margin and make up for the absence of the betting shops and for the cashless society, because I don't think there's many people in any industry that don't believe that there will be a lot less cash and probably betting shops in 10 years' time. And
the pandemic has sped it up, Harry. I was always a man that had cash in my pocket. If I have a couple of euro in my pocket now, it's almost, why is this here? I literally have €2 in my pocket to pay to get the trolley when you go for the shops. That's the extent of the cash these days.
Yeah, no, this is it, and this is why we have to take advantage. It's like Tony Bloom when we wrote the book. He said that he told Neil Harmon when we were writing the book that if he was still doing betting and doing what he was doing 6 years ago, now he wouldn't be winning. And gambling's always evolving, always changing. And I believe that, as you rightly said, COVID has made a massive difference, and it's COVID that's given Greyhound Racing an opportunity not just to catch up with horses, not just to catch up with other sports, but to jump in front of them. And all the other sports have been affected in some way. Look at football and even horse racing with ownerships and that. The thing that's been affected the least is Greyhound Racing. And in Australia, it has just absolutely flourished. And I really can see in Ireland a very similar situation with the greyhounds as has happened to New South Wales. When they tried to get it banned, and for a 3-month period, it was banned, but it really reunited the greyhound people to get behind the sport and to get behind what it really stands for. And I think that's going to happen in Ireland now. And I think that when the COVID's over and the crowds go back, I really believe it will be a boom time for the tracks, and that's why I'm so hoping that Lifford can be a part of it, and perhaps show the other tracks how if the lower margin better modding can work, and really rejuvenate it over there.
Yeah, Jimmy, we are very much in a different industry over here in Ireland now, the greyhound industry. The UK certainly as well. They probably grasped onto the welfare issue a bit earlier than ourselves, but it's huge now. We need to be shown that we love our greyhounds, and we do. And that's the problem. We have to get the message out there.
Absolutely. I was making the point lately to somebody that there will never, ever again, or should never again be a situation where a greyhound is not looked after from the minute he is born to the day he stops racing or dies, because we've got to show that we care for these animals. They're the greatest. It's a great sport. There are some, I said it already in a discussion with you, Ian, some of the greatest people I've ever been involved in any sport are involved in greyhound racing. It's a massive grassroots sport in Ireland, both rural and urban. And I mean, we were involved in the Laurels fundraising there in Cork two years ago, and we raised something like €110,000 in the space of 3 weeks to sponsor the Laurels for 5 years. And that just shows that there is a massive groundswell of support out there. And Harry has alluded to it there. It's about the takeout and what the profit margin that the Totes and the bookmakers and all that, they must go back into the game. And if we do that, I think there's a massive opportunity now when the COVID restrictions being lifted, that we can get people back racing into our restaurants and bars and give them a fantastic product. And as you said, Ian, key welfare, greyhounds priority, that there'll never again be a situation where a dog is treated or put down because he's not fast enough. There's a race for every greyhound and a home for every greyhound.
Harry, of course, you had a dog at your feet for many a years. Your great pal, big fella. Thanks. You know exactly how good they are.
I mean, my best friends are. I'm Billy No Mates. My best friends are greyhounds, and that's part of what we're doing at Lifford. We've got Seamus White, a local fella. He's the director now, and he's a great businessman. He's sending me pictures last night of his dogs lounging around. Our racing manager, and Lorraine Sams, Paul Lawrence, who you mentioned earlier, and Lorraine Sams. Lorraine Sams has had more greyhounds around her and done more for welfare and the Thai dogs than anyone I know. One of our shareholders, Lorraine's a shareholder at Lifford. Brian Jones, the vet, is Lifford. He's a shareholder as well, and he'll be having once a month. He'll be having a clinic and an advice session with the dogs. And we've got some fantastic plans at Lifford for what we can do with the Thai greyhounds. And without blowing my own trumpet, I spent a lot of time in Czechoslovakia and Hungary where I gave them Concord Swift and some dogs when I wasn't going so well 2 decades ago. And that bloodline now has come right the way through Eastern Europe. And we must never forget how important the greyhound blood is. The greyhounds are the best breed dog in the world. Their blood is like a Rolls Royce. All the other people talk about antis and talk about cruelty. Greyhounds are the only no inbreeding, the strongest blood ever. All the other animals, they need that greyhound blood for so many reasons. As Brian Jones said this morning, you can drive a truck into the veins. We need greyhounds everywhere, and we need greyhounds to race. They were born to race, and I believe the welfare, looking at how we've projected Lifford and going forward, I'll tell you the truth, I'm really impressed with what the GRI have done in the last couple of years here. Now, we looked at the other tracks, we've had to see what they're doing, and there's a lot of welfare issues in Ireland that it's unrecognisable to 20, 15 years ago. And this is
no question.
This is what we've got to do. They've done it in New South Wales, and I believe you guys are doing it in Ireland. And I was looking at what we've had to do at Lifford and what we are doing. I'm impressed with how the GRI are going about it. And I think the way the world is going, I think that the bad times of what's happened with dogs and rearing dogs or whatever for racing, I think that's a thing of the past. And certainly the transformation in New South Wales, when everyone rallied behind it, when it looked like the sport was in trouble, the payoffs have been enormous. And I can feel that in Ireland, but I just feel they need to have a better betting product. The Aussies have that great tote and they have that prize money system. And what people have got to remember is that if the tote model works at Lifford, the money won't be going to, they're not a bookmaker, the money won't be going to them when it succeeds. It will go to the owners, it will go to the trainers. The eventuality is that the prize money will improve and the whole system improves. And we'd love to have a chance to show the GRI just how it works and work alongside them and exciting times. For me, next year's Greyhound Derby at Shelbourne Park, there's no reason why it shouldn't be shown in Hong Kong. It should be the Irish Greyhound Derby in the English Greyhound Derbies, these events should be shown all around the world because they are unique.
Yeah, it was funny enough. It was only last year's Derby, with the runs of Pastana and Ewan Taylor, that I realised how much they are taking notice in Australia of our Greyhound Derby, and the way they were following it was illuminating. Getting back to Lifford, Harry, because we do have to get back to it. It's great to see a track reopening. What's the plan in an ideal world? When do you hope to be open racing? And you're putting a great team together. You've already mentioned there Paul Lawrence, who he's done it all in Greyhound racing. He knows more about greyhounds than any man alive. Lorraine Sams, who's very much involved in the welfare aspect of things, and of course you've got one of the great groundsmen up there.
We've got everyone, and Cahill McGee, who used to own it. I should have bought the track off Cahill 30 years ago. Like myself, won 2 derbies at Clonmel. We've won 3 derbies in the notes between us, so it has to be in great hands. But no, I'll tell you the truth, it's Cahill McGee and Brian Jones, people like that, who when I first spoke to them a few months ago, they were a bit down and didn't think it could happen. And to hear him now, to hear Cahill McGee, he's been in there and ripped all the weeds out. He's put the weed killer in the hair rail. So we're getting going. But we were hoping maybe we might get the licence last week, but we've just got little hiccups that we should get sorted out. And maybe in 3 weeks' time with the licence, by then everything will literally be in place. All the money's in place. That we've started the Lifford Greyhound Racing Club. Seamus White is the director, and Lorraine Sams is the what's the word beginning with their secretary, and she's also getting the license for the track. But I've had a lot of people asking, will we have bookmakers with the track? We're going to have, on course, the takeout on the Tote is going to be 10% maximum on everything. So the atmosphere amongst the crowd will be fantastic. Many more people winning. The guys who are backing us in the restaurant are so excited by the whole idea. But on tote.uk, on our website, we're going to have it on 5%, which really means that people all around the world can bet with tote.uk and get better percentages on Greyhound, top-class Greyhound racing than they can on red and black in a casino now playing roulette, where they have 2 greens, and we're just better than that. So we really are putting our money where our mouth is and giving Greyhound punters the value. And
will you be open by the end of the year, do you hope, Harry?
The plan, to be honest, if we'd have got the licence this week, we would very much hoping to plan to open on the 27th of September, a week after the Irish Derby. We was hoping to get those good Derby dogs that are all going to run at Shelbourne Park. We were hoping to get them 8 days later at Lifford on the Sunday afternoon.
Jimmy, there's no pressure on you now. You have to get a few dogs to be running Lifford. How far a drive is it from you, Jimmy, to Lifford?
About 6 hours. But I've never been there, but I know from talking to people who have been, it's one of the great racing circuits in the world. And I know from speaking to Harry over the last couple of months, and the people Harry's advising the group that are trying to get racing back there and get the license for it. I know from talking to the people involved, and the caliber of people involved is absolutely massive. And it's a fantastic, exciting project. I mean, for the Greyhound racing people in Ireland and the Greyhound board to reopen a track will be extraordinary in the present climate. And the package that's put in place, I know there are some couple of teething difficulties to be sorted out, but I'd be hoping and praying that they get the license and that we'd be up and running. What a boost it would be to the northwest part of the country, both for Greyhound racing and employment and everything that goes with that. It'd be massive. And you've got a huge catchment area as well for the whole north of Ireland. Derry people, the northwest Lifford, the whole Donegal tourism factor. It's massive. And I just hope and pray, as I said, we can sort out these teething difficulties, get the licence, and Harry says he'll be up and running by September, October. What a boost to Greyhound racing in Ireland. Biggest boost in 50 years, I think.
Yeah, apart from everything else, it is probably one of the most beautiful areas in Ireland. Like, it's a stunning place to go for 3 or 4 days. Why not include a trip to the dogs? That's the key. That's the key message, Harry.
I expect to have all the golfers there next year, because they all go and play. All them great golf courses are all around there, and I'll be telling them to come to Lifford on the Sunday afternoon, because it's such a great track. It's a unique opportunity, and I was over there in December, and I've got to say that everyone's saying what a great. It sounds great, but I've got to thank the Duffys who have made it possible. The Duffys, I went over and saw them, and the price I offered, I didn't think they'd accept, and they really believed in the whole idea. They really so believe in the track, and some of the GRI, they invested 12 million making the stand there, and I'd be kidding myself if this would be possible without that. The infrastructure's there. There's a 12 million pound stand, 12 million euro stand there. That's the guys from the food and drinks places come and see. They just cannot believe what great the condition that it's in. It's absolutely fantastic. But if we waited another year, then you'd have to start spending a lot of money on it. And this is the ideal opportunity for Greyhound Racing to find out if it's made for a lot. Don't forget, 1920, 1930, 40s, 50s, for 40 years, the Tote takeover at every track in London and Florida was over £10 million, which nowadays money is just billions. And that is because they had a 5 and 6% takeout. And now in England, it's gone up to over 30, which is grotesque. And the only reason Shelbourne Park and the Irish tracks are doing so well is because their clever government, 10 years ago, the Irish government said, look, no more. You can't take any more than 25% out of any tote pool. And in England, we didn't do that. In other countries, they've let it go up to 30, 32%, which is barbaric and just will close down anything. But the Irish government cleverly kept it at 25. Now we're going to show them with Greyhound Racing, let's turn the clock back and go back to 5 and 10, and we'll really show what the sport can do.
Once the liquidity is there, Harry, when a fella can go into the restaurant, have £100 on a dog, and it doesn't budge its price, you know you're on a winner, because that's where you want to fill the restaurant, have people punting, have people sitting at home, they can have what they want on, and if your dog isn't popular, you can be guaranteed you get a good price, and that's what you want.
Ian, you've hit the nail on the head, and the number one goal we're going to do, the number one thing we have to do, and our seeding makes sure this happens by definition, is that we want to be in a position where all round Ireland, or certainly starting at Lifford, someone in the restaurant wants to have £40 or £30 win on a dog. They're not scared to have it on the tote. And you've hit the nail on the head. That's the first thing you have to do with a strong tote, is let people have their 30, 40 quid win and not be worried about it going from 5 to 2 to 11 away. Greyhound Racing has the shrewdest. If someone said to me, of all the sports in the world, which punters are the shrewdest? I would say without a question, Greyhound Racing punters. And yet they're the ones that have been abused for 35 years. They're the ones that have had the percentages jacked up to 20 and 30%. Other sports, other card games, they have different percentages for the shrewd players and the mugs. But Greyhound Racing, they haven't shown, no bookmakers, no one in the industry has shown the punters any respect. But Jamie Hart has always done that. And he went to William Hill's and turned them inside out. And he would have been working with me at Coventry, not other than Ralph Topping left with Hills. And now Greyhound Racing's got a chance to work with Jamie Hart and the Tote again. And I hope they take it, because in all my years, I've never, ever seen horse racing reach out with an olive branch for Greyhound Racing. It's always been the other way around. It's always been the dogmen looking after the horsemen. And in a CEO like Alex Frost, he's managed to get all the countries together, France, Australia, South Africa, the Swedes, and he's the man that can put Greyhound Racing on the boards in Hong Kong. And as soon as Lifford's up and running, my next job will be to work on a jackpot bet, maybe an 8-leg jackpot bet, where the first 2 legs are at Wentworth on a Saturday morning and the last 2 legs are at Lifford on a Sunday afternoon. And we'll go and do that, because Greyhound Racing was made for betting, and Greyhound Racing is the best sport in the world.
We want it to be in a situation where it can hold Jimmy's thousands, when he's backing something that, even money in the third or fourth race in Lifford on a Sunday, that it can hold his £2,000. Is that it, Jimmy?
It is, Ian. And in fairness, I mean, for the Tote UK to come in and guarantee this project at Lifford, prize money, etc., it's a massive boost to the game in Ireland, I think. And it just shows that it shows the prospects that they see in it. And I just hope now that we can get this up and running at it. As I said already, it'll be the biggest fillip to Greyhound Racing in Ireland in 50 years, in my opinion. We've had tracks closing, people losing their jobs, all that. Pandemic is coming to an end, hopefully. People will be looking for somewhere to go spend their money. We've got to give them the product. And places like Lifford and Corrine Park and Shelbourne, we can do that. And the stadia are there. Let's give them the product and get right behind us. It's a fantastic innovation, I think.
Yeah, we have a few minutes left, lads. Best of luck with Lifford. We'll move it on. It'd be remiss of me at this point to point out that there is an offer with Matchbook at present when you do sign up. A 0% commission offer. You'll see it there. The bonus code is at the bottom. Insights, all capitals. 0% commission on all sports for 30 days. And of course, the daily bags meetings are all priced up from early. That's, much better than all the various competitors. So if you are betting dogs, you have great options with Matchbook, as well as perhaps with the Tote in the likes of Lifford in the near future. Now, lads, we're going to bring you back a few years, and I'm going to ask you about your memories of the English Derby, because it is an English Derby podcast. Harry, I heard you speaking about Balniska Band in one of the podcasts I was watching as I was getting ready for this. He was one of the dogs that got you involved in greyhound racing, it seems.
Oh, absolutely. I've never seen a dog go to the bend quicker in all my life, and he ended up winning it at 20s. I remember a couple of years later, though, I fell in love. I was at White City about a month before the Derby, 6 weeks, and there was a dog called Photo Album from White City that led all the way. And was an Photo Album went through the grades, A8 to A1 at White City, and it was just a machine. Anyway, on this night at White City, just literally the round before the Derby started, or a couple of weeks before the Derby started, Jeff de Mulder brought a dog down from the Midlands, and it was back from 9 to 4 to evens, and Photo Album went from 2 on to evens, and they were both about 11. This is a White City, Jimmy, just before the Derby. And Photo Album was about 8 lengths in front down the far side, and Desert Pilot just took off and got beat ahead. And I stood there at White City on top of the thing, and I said, everyone, if this dog doesn't win the Derby. Anyway, he was 25 to 1, and he got beat in the final by the kennel mate, Sarah's Bunny. And I watched every round of that Derby, stood next to Jeff de Mulder at the third bend. And I remember leaving in tears. Tyrian started joint favourite, a graded dog. And Desert Pilot, for some reason, ran terrible in the semis. I wasn't convinced he'd win in the final when he didn't, but he was unnatural. He lost about 8 lengths down the back. He was absolutely the dog that the year before, like a champion, put him on the floor, and he was the unluckiest loser ever. And Jeff de Mulder won the Derby, and he was absolutely heartbroken because he wanted Desert Pilot to win, and his other dog won it. And Desert Pilot's defeat was the thing. Although it's a bad memory, it's the saddest thing. And I remember he was called Bing. The dean was called, his kennel name was Bing. And I went to see him literally 2 weeks before he died when he was about 14. And that's although it's a bad memory, that's my number one memory. Driving out of White City that night, crying my eyes out in Ray Swain's dad's car. That's my biggest memory.
At least you got there. Jimmy, I believe you did have a dog that was good enough to go to the English Derby. It was all planned. What happened?
Yeah, it was Buster Douglas. He had won the Munster Puppy Cup in Thurles. Massive run, trained by Michael Donovan. He was a super early paced dog. And Michael was convinced he'd go a long way in the English Derby. Wimbledon would have been totally suited to him. Early pace, wide, massive back straight pace. But unfortunately, foot and mouth came in the way. Dog got injured, never appeared again. So such is life. But I would say, Harry's my 2 great memories of English Derbies are my first one in 1973 at the White City. I just can't. I go on about this, the spectacle that it was. He had 30,000 people in Shepherd's Bush, massive atmosphere. Stan Bowles was there. I was introduced on the same night. What a footballer with Queen's Park Rangers. He was a great doggy man. How do you remember him? And,
all the time.
I remember Fisher's Hope won the second of his derbies in 1973, trained by Johnny O'Connor, who was actually a former Waterford hurler, and who I got to know in later years as a gentleman. And he won the second of his derbies that night, a massive run. And you know how hard it is to win a derby. To win 2 of them was extraordinary. And my other great memory was Wimbledon with Westmeath Hawk. What a dog. Definitely, I would say, greatest dog I ever saw. He was just grease lightning down the back straight and coming home. You couldn't see him winning in one of the finals. Certainly couldn't see him winning at any stage. And what a dog. He was the best greyhound I ever saw.
I proclaim he's not the fastest dog I ever saw, but I can promise you one thing. I think he's the most intelligent greyhound I ever saw. Yeah, he could see traffic, 100 yards out. He was just unbelievable. He'd slip in, slip out, and just
to watch on YouTube, as you said there, one of his victories where I'm not sure which one, that he came in between, weaving between dogs. I have never ever seen anything like it. He was just the greatest dog I ever saw anyway.
Yeah, my greatest memory of the English Derby, obviously Loyal Honcho was pretty important to me because Seamus Graham trained all our dogs. He was, he trained an Oaks winner for us. But Farlow Melody back in 1992, I was there as a young lad. I was 14 years of age. I never heard noise like it. Wimbledon, like you say about 30,000 people in White City, it seemed like there was 100,000 people in Wimbledon that night. The noise, it was just unbelievable. I suppose that makes the English Derby final night, Harry. It's the raucous occasion. It's the okay, we've been blessed with the likes of Wimbledon and White City, and Toaster's a very different stadium in the sense where it's a great facility, unbelievable. But the fact that it's a one-sided stand, you don't have the stands on the far side, you don't get that cacophony of noise.
No, and for me, I'm not a big fan with the tracks inside a long way away. But to be fair, I haven't been to Toaster on a Derby night. But the year they had the final, all I heard was great reviews about the atmosphere, and the actual stand that is there is so nice and classy. So I think they do a real classy job at Toaster, and I think although it's different, I do believe that they say the atmosphere there it is unique and it is quite good. For me, I like to be closer to the action. I like Romford on a Friday night when you smell the dogs when they're going past. But
while you're screaming "oi oi," the dog can actually hear you.
It's funny. I remember, lad. Do you remember? I remember Jimmy when I used to go, and Michael Donovan when he brought his name up. I used to go and have photographs taken more or less as a teenager whenever he had a winner. But I remember one night when the Irish derby's on, going to Harold's Cross for a puppy derby heat, and I would have been 19 or 20 at the time, and I made this dog about 5 on it. It was 47 anyway. I've smashed it to pieces. And I'll never forget the first time I went to Harold's Cross to bet this dog. I was stood on the stand, and as soon as it pinged out, I bet it from 4-7 to 2-9. It's pinged out 2 in front. As it's gone round the bend, I'm going, I like I do times 10. You imagine what I was like when I was 21. And anyway, I got the biggest bollocking I've ever had in my life. I'll never forget it. I got a massive bollocking from all these old Irish guys saying, you don't cheer them like that here, you don't. And I'm saying, are you sure? And I'll never forget that night. I just couldn't stop laughing. I remember it clear as a bell. The first round of the Puppy Derby heats at Harold's Cross. And at Shelbourne, you was allowed to cheer them. But on a quiet night at Harold's Cross, they took offence a little bit. But no, I owe my life to Shelbourne Park, looking back with when I first met my mate. I was with Mark Prescott last week, and he's still taking the piss out of me now how I managed to get Kay. And she's the only gambler's wife who never says, why did you do that? And I look back on it, and when she was 19, I took her to Shelbourne Park, and we were going out. We were watching the Irish Derby heats and Chiquita Banana, and going down Leeson Street with Jim Brown and David Byrne and people like that. And no wonder, I don't think it was me that pulled her. I think it was Leeson Street and Dublin and Shelbourne Park on a Saturday night. I think that's what done it. So
if we can do this 4 or 5 times a year, I'm in.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is Saturday night. The dogs. I've always been dog crazy, but for her to be around when Chiquita Banana was flying, and when the night Chiquita Banana got to the final at Shelbourne Park was the most exciting night of my life. Because I bought her for 11 grand after she won in the first round, and I never had 80 pence on me, but I just knew that she was going to be a 6-pence superstar, and I'd get my mates to chip in. And I backed her to reach the final to get my money back, and of course she got through last to first in the semi-final. And all the punters, it was the most exciting night the dogs have ever had when Chiquita Banana got to the final at Shelbourne. So memories about both the Irish and the Greyhound Derby for me. It's the best competition in the world.
Getting back to Chiquita Banana, she ended up being a bit of a cult figure. She was such a star in the UK over 6 bends, and people used to arrive with the big inflatable bananas when she raced.
And when she first raced, she was useless. She couldn't pick her feet up. She got beat 15 lengths in a 10 bend marathon at Catford. And John McGee said, "Oh, don't worry." I said, "What are you going to do now, John?" He said, "I'll find the key to unlock her." I said, "Key to unlock her? Good luck." And then 6 months later, she won her next race at 33-1. She beat Fort Leader with short head, and then all of a sudden she won. When she won the Stewards Cup at Walthamstow, I thought that was as happy as any human being could be. When she won she was 3-1 joint favourite in the final, and John McGee said to me, "She's a certainty, an absolute certainty," and she won 6 1/4. And then she broke the track record at Wembley 2 nights later when Kay was there, and I was screaming the place down. She was an excitement machine.
Do you remember her, Jimmy?
I do well, yeah. And I got to know Hardy first that time in Shelbourne Park. She was fantastic, and as you say, she became a cult figure, and people latched on to Greyhound Racing, a bit like Paddy Regan, Bob, and Score Lug Champ. These dogs catch people's imagination, especially in England where there's a huge population, and if we can get more of that, that's what gets the game going.
I was at Shelbourne on my own, Ian, and I'll tell you what I did. I bet a 600 to 4 on Odell King. And Odell King was the strongest dog you've ever bet in your life. It was a Derby heats, first round or second round. And Odell King, I bet 600 to 4 on Odell King. I thought it'd go around the bend fourth and come and win on the running. Well, Odell King led. It's going to win 10 lengths. Chiquita Banana come from nowhere and got beat 3/4 of a length. And I went straight down into that thing that used to be there, got the loudspeaker, asked for the owner to come down, and bought her about 15 minutes later. And then the rest.
I don't believe you needed the loudspeaker, to be honest.
No, I had to get the owner down. No, the young lady called his name out for me. Peter Doyle it was. Can Peter Doyle please come to the thing? And I said, how much? Because I knew everyone else was going to buy her. I knew if I waited till the next day, she'd be gone. So I literally bought her 15 minutes after she won against Odell King. And then I went straight out and went down the line. I said, I've just bought this bitch. What price can I back her to reach the final? Knowing, of course, even then, that she was really strong and would keep qualifying. So they went 20 to 1 and 16s. I thought, yeah, lovely. How much can I have? I made her about 4.
she was a cheap bitch then.
Yeah, she was cheap. Johnny Spark, who started all this the spread betting. He invented City Index. Johnny Spark bought it with me, and we had some. Initially, we had a few defeats, but latterly we had some great times with that. Best time of my life.
You mentioned a couple of the Concord dogs earlier on, Harry. I was just wondering, did you have any English Derby challengers in your time? Or?
Oh yes, I had plenty. I had the Blackshaw would.
Oh, Blackshaw, I remember him. Yeah, of course, brilliant early speed.
Blackshaw would have won the Derby blindfolded. Don Cuddy rang me. I was at the tennis watching the Goda Open in Barcelona, and Don Cuddy rang me and said, "The Derby's over. Premier Fantasy's won the Derby." This was when Premier Fantasy was 33 to 1. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Unless Premier Fantasy goes lame, it'll win the Derby." And I watched the round before he went lame with Jonathan Kay, and I'd never seen anything like it in my life for Greyhound Racing. I said to Jonathan, "The Derby's over." Or he breaks down, and unfortunately, he was just so fast, Premier Fantasy. But Blackshaw was faster. Don Cuddy told me that Blackshaw is the fastest greyhound that ever lived, and I know he's right. And with Chris Burt, the deal I got to get him without paying any money, the owner loved Don Cuddy like me, and how I managed to get Don Cuddy, Blackshaw in Don Cuddy's hand was genius, and we took him to Wimbledon, we took him to Chris Lund in England, and Chris Lund and I took him down for a sprint trial. I always insist on sprint trials to start with, especially with Blackshaw anyway. We took him for a 2.38 at Wimbledon, and he smashed the track record by about 2.5 lengths. And Chris Lund and I said nothing all the way home. We were driving home, and neither of us said anything. We knew the Derby was over. And we stopped at the same service station we stop at, got him out the back of the car, and he was lame.
Oh.
And people who saw that trial, the former Blackshaw, that puppy Derby that he won at Harold's Cross, and that slip away JD trial at Wimbledon, you couldn't get near it. It was just 400-yard dog that's catapulted out, and no one got within a length of that track record for years. And Blackshaw just smashed it to smithereens first time round. And he was a little small dog, and he was a machine, and he was the fastest dog I ever had. But I had other dogs that were 12 and 14 and 16 to win the Derby, but never. To be honest, I always wanted to win the course in Derby, and that was once the Derby for me was the biggest thing in the world while it was at White City. But when it went to Wimbledon, and of course I fell in love with Clonmel, so it was always Clonmel would have been my dream. Whereas Jimmy's was that White City 73 that left a mark on Jimmy, obviously, and now I've had a few go close.
Yeah. Listen, lads, we could chat all day about it. It's just over the hour now. Harry, I have to ask you, where are you based? Are you going to get to Tote? You will be able to manage to get there at any stage of the Derby?
I'm down in Newton Abbot. There used to be 2 dog tracks here. No, I'm down in Newton Abbot in Devon, and just watching more sport than I've ever watched. Loving all of it. Just can't watch enough sport, and I'll be watching. The Greyhounds are on all the time now, and I'm at dogs all day because I do like the Aussie dogs in the morning. I do. From the start of lockdown, I've kept my eye in with the Aussie dogs. So it's basically the same as it's always been for me. I start watching sport at 9 o'clock at night in the morning, and I watch it all day, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll tell you what, as an existence, that sounds good to me. Jimmy, I know you're something similar. You live for the sport. Obviously, you played it at a higher level than myself and Harry. You'll be keeping a keen eye on all the action from Tote.
Yeah, can't wait for Thursday night again. First round heats are always very exciting. Trying to picture wits against the bookmakers, see where the value is, and just kicking on from there over the weekend. 3 nights racing, it's heaven for me watching those Greyhound racing at home. Yeah,
indeed. We listen as doggy men, and we're 3 pure, unadulterated doggy men. We're not going to change now before our dying days. You want to see the best in action.
Exactly. There's nothing like Shelbourne Park Derby final night or the English Derby final night, wherever it's on. Nothing like it.
Harry,
I think philosophically, Ian, I think that it was always what I believed as a youngster, that when you're older you change very little, but as we have all got older, I realise you don't change at all. You like exactly the same things, and it's almost quite scary how similar we are when you're 16 to when you're 58 or whatever you are. And watching sport reminds me that on a daily basis, and nothing's going to change. And we're so lucky that the dogs and the horses have kept us sane this last year, and you know the French Open tennis is coming. It's starting again now. I'm on Swear Tech. I got a few quid out of her last year. Nothing clever this year, but that's how it should be. As the football season finishes, the French Open tennis starts, and it's the circle of life.
The circle of punting life. The circle of punting life. Of course, you can get all the prices of the matchbook and the tennis, the dogs, you name it. In fact, Thursday morning, all the heats for that evening's action at Toaster will be on site, of course. And again, one more time, just give your 2 picks for the derby, lads, before we go. Jimmy,
Beach Avenue and Knocknable State.
Harry,
I'll go with the dog that beat New in Session, that Highlight dog. Chris says you need to trap, and he's a trapper. And 33 to 1, I'll go with him.
And you're on the machine for the each way steal.
Yeah, well, I've got 200 quid each way at 6 picks, but I know someone else I knew I had to be quick because I knew someone else was backing him. That's the sort of with the 6 places. I do like the strong runners. I might well have a bit on that dog that Jimmy's put up each way as well, because I know Paul Lawrence likes him too.
Yeah, well, I can promise you, the machine was well named. He is unbelievable from the second bend home. Listen, lads, great chatting to you. Let's do this again soon. I really enjoyed it. Don't forget, folks, follow us on Team Matchbook on Twitter, @Team Matchbook. Keep up to date with all the various action. You can also subscribe to the Matchbook Betting Podcast on your preferred podcast app. And, of course, we're on YouTube. So Team Matchbook on YouTube to keep up to date. We'll be giving you more content during the English Derby. But for now, lads, best of luck. Best of luck with Beach Avenue. Best of luck with the machine and Highlight Arkle. Harry, again, lads, thanks very much. It's been real. Really enjoyed it. Join us next time, folks, on Team Matchbook.